In this example, we're going to take a look at Krakatoa MX 2.4 and how to pass color from an object through a PRT surface through a frost mesher using some of the new features added in that version of Krakatoa. In this scene we have 5 objects which have wireframe colors that are different, and we also have materials assigned which are completely different to each one of them, and would like to see how to use Magma to pass those on. I'll select all the objects and create a PRT surface. This PRT surface has its own wireframe color and currently it's using spacing of 0.5. I have set the objects to automatically hide when they get added, so all the original sources are now hidden. And we would like to get the colors of those objects onto those particles. So I'm going to select a Krakatoa Magma. I'll open the editor, press Shift-Control-C to create a color, and then I'll click O, and then I need the nearest point, which is N. And I'll drag from the geometry input socket to create an input geometry and pick by name all the 5 objects that we created initially. And we'll need to sample the lookup point in world space. So we drag from that socket, and if we enable auto update, the position currently is being written out as color. What we actually want to do, I'll press Ctrl R here inside, not here, in order to reorder the nodes in a nicer way. And what we actually want to do is use the O and property query. I'll press E, and this operator has the ability to ask an object for its properties using technically max script under the hood. It gets the objects as input and the object index also. So since we're getting the object index from the nearest point, and the input geometry operator in version 2.4 and higher now has an object's output, all we have to do is press Ctrl, select this node, and press spacebar, and Magma is going to connect the corresponding names, objects to objects and object index to object index. And now in the property query, instead of position, we need wire color. This is the max script expression that is going to be called on each one of the objects. It will take the object and add dot wire color behind it. We don't need to type in the dot, it's inserted automatically. And then we remove the position and connect the wire color to the output. So now the color of each particle is going to be the color of the object that is closest to that particle, which is technically the object that the particle was made of. At this point we can create a frost from the PRT surface. We'll switch it to Zubritson mode, we'll set it to 2.2, and we'll change the radius to something like 1. Remember that the spacing between the points is about 0.5, so that should be plenty. And in order to see the actual vertex color in the viewport, we'll enable vertex color in shaded mode, vertex channel display, and here we go with a frost mesh that has the object colors of the meshes that create the points in the PRT surface. Now remember that we also have material diffuse property that we can query, because each one of the original meshes also has a standard material with diffuse color property. So we can go and type in material diffuse in the properties to expose, and we can just wire it over to the color channel and then update the frost. And when we do this, the frost will be using the actual diffuse colors. Since we have the two properties and would like to probably toggle between them, all we need to do is insert a switch in between. I pressed the button with the slash and question mark on the keyboard, which inserts a logical switch operator, or we could press L and then W or select the switch. In this case, when the third input is true or 1, the material diffuse is going to be used. That's the true condition, and the wireframe color will be used when it's false. So we could add an integer with a value of 1 to define the control, 1 or 0, and then we can expose it in the user interface of the Magma as a checkbox, as you saw. Actually, it was already selected, so here it is. And if I change the name of this input and say use material, then this is what is going to say on the checkbox, which means that if I uncheck this and go and update my frost, the color will switch. We can also hide the frost and just watch the colors here. So I select this one, and when I click, the color is inverted, obviously evaluating a material for each point, not the material but its property, and asking for the color. Takes a little bit of time, but it's just a second or two, and then you get the result that you expected. Now if we wanted to render the frost that we generated in the scanline renderer, for example, I'm going to unhide this. I'll select frost, and I would have to obviously add a vertex color map to it, otherwise it would render in its own color. We can change the spacing and the renderer to use the same value as the viewport, so we don't waste too much time. In the diffuse here, we add a vertex color map set to channel 0, and we have assigned this already to the frost. So if we go and render in the scanline renderer, here it is. This is the version with the wireframe color, and we can go and select this one, check material, re-render, and this should give us the updated mesh with the materials from the individual objects that created the point cloud. Alright, so we have a nice setup. You can save this one as a preset and load, and all you have to do is pretty much replace these objects, so you can expose them also, and now you have a nice setup with objects to scan and the material to use. Since we're using nearest point, if we don't use all the objects that are there, the closest point in some of these cases will be a faraway object, but it will always find some point. So you're going to see now that the points are being colored according to what is closer, the box or the teapot, because those are all the objects that we have currently on the list. Actually, the cone is the yellow one, and the box. And if we go and keep on adding by name, for example, we also add the sphere and then update the frost, then a third object will be introduced, and all the points in that area are going to get its color. But in general, you should add all the objects that are on the PRT surface list, also add to the magma. So here we go. If we wanted to preserve an existing, potentially existing vertex color channel in the frost mesh that came from a color channel in a point cloud that already had one, then you can just switch the magma to use a different channel. We have 100 mapping channels, so we can switch that one to, for example, mapping 2. And then in the material editor, we obviously have to also switch this to 2. And in the viewport display, we would have to switch this to use map channel 2. Currently it's not populated. We would have to update the frost before we can see it. So in this case, if we render, we'll get the same result as in the viewport using the nearest point of whatever objects were picked, but we are not passing them to the color channel, we're passing them to the mapping channel 2 or your mapping channel 3 or 42 or 99, doesn't really matter. You can pass pretty much 99 different color channels to your frost using Magma. Hopefully this will help enjoy this new feature in Krakatoa 2.4, especially if you're a frost user and you need to pass that kind of data between objects, points and the mesh.